Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and the San Francisco 49ers have announced many big changes are coming in the year 2025. We're going to react to the John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan year-end press conference and everything they had to say when it comes to the futures of Deebo Samuel, Trent Williams, Greenlaw, Javon Hargrave, Brock Purdy, and the many coaching changes they made today and are going to make in the near future. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And let's talk about what transpired today at Niners HQ in Santa Clara, California, when John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan took the podium for the final time in the 2024 season. It was an eventful day, first off, and I think to begin the show, it's important to discuss the moves that have actually been made first before discussing the moves that can be made in the future. The first big move that came 2 days ago was the team firing, finally, special teams coordinator Brian Schneider. It was a long time coming. This year was a debacle on special teams. It cost them so many games. We already talked in length about the move, but I want to say here, thank God he is no longer part of this organization. Whether it was the coaching issues they had, special teams was the worst unit I have ever seen in my time covering this team and also being a fan of this team. It was so bad this year, and thankfully Brian Schneider is gone. The other move they made late last night was Nick Sorensen being removed as the defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers, but it comes with a twist. That's right. Nick Sorensen, while being removed as defensive coordinator, is technically still under contract with the team, meaning whether it be a demotion, whether it be kind of a sideways step into a different role, Nick Sorensen will in some form or fashion remain part of the San Francisco 49ers organization and coaching staff, at least for one more season. The kind of collective rumor and thought is he may move in to Brian Schneider's old role as special teams coordinator next year. Unfortunately, Nick Sorensen, I believe, has had 1 year as a special teams coordinator in Jacksonville, and I believe they were a bottom 5 unit in football. So maybe he's learned his lesson, but either way, not great. That said, I know many of you out there were like, why isn't this guy getting fired? Get him out of here. Sorensen will be in town for at least one more season in San Francisco. And I think there is value to having him in the building now. You can say he's a former defensive coordinator. He also was integral into those attacking the ball drills in previous seasons. So he does add some value, a lot more than Brian Schneider did. So I don't mind keeping Sorensen around, but I don't think he can remain involved in the defense, because that's an awkward conversation to have. It's an awkward place to be of like, hey, didn't we like demote you like 4 months ago? This is weird, but he's still going to remain in San Francisco for at least one more year, which brings us to the big swing, the home run hit that everyone is begging for this offseason. The news came out this morning via Josina Anderson, and she said, while Robert Saleh is going to interview for the Jacksonville Jaguars head coaching vacancy, the San Francisco 49ers plan to offer him the defensive coordinator job. And I cannot tell you how many comments I've seen on Twitter, on X, on Facebook, on the Instagram of everybody saying, I don't want any other defensive coordinator candidate out there. Bring me Robert Saleh or bring me death. I get there is this emotional attachment to Robert Saleh. He was here in 2017 up until 2021 when he left for the Jets job. But there seems to be this like, only he can fix the San Francisco 49ers defense, which again, I get, but I kind of equate the Robert Saleh stuff to DeForest Buckner, where fans to this day are clamoring to get DeForest Buckner back in the red and gold. And I get it. Who doesn't love Defo? Who doesn't love Robert Saleh? I just think it doesn't have to be Buckner. It doesn't have to be Saleh that can come in and actually fix this defense and get it back on track next year. But apparently they're going to offer him a deal. And I think it comes down to whether Saleh wants to become a head coach or can become a head coach. Because if he can't, it's a pretty good fallback option to come back to where you had your most successful tenure as a coach in the NFL, that being the San Francisco 49ers. And there would be this sense of like, quote unquote, unfinished business with the Niners of like, hey, you lost the Super Bowl. It didn't go well towards the end in 2020, but come back essentially, quote unquote, home, and you can figure this thing out and hopefully bring this team a Lombardi trophy with the same almost exact coaching staff you had when you left the first time. The other small news in regards to defensive coordinator is Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley will apparently get an opportunity to interview for the defensive coordinator job. I know many out there are gasping, saying, oh, no, anybody but Brandon Staley. Let me tell you this. While he isn't my first choice, I was shocked that he wasn't named defensive coordinator last year. Instead, he got hired as this like defensive back assistant coach, worked with the nickelbacks this year, which honestly, the secondary wasn't the problem. It was the front seven that couldn't do their job, mainly the defensive line. But he'll get an opportunity this offseason to interview for the job, but it seems like it's Robert Saleh's job to lose unless somebody else wows them and blows them away. Shanahan did explain what he was looking for, the reasoning as to why he was willing to fire Sorensen after 1 year. He said, I feel there's options out there that I feel like would be better for where we are as a team. Essentially saying, I like Nick Sorensen. We're going to keep Nick Sorensen via the do right. Hey, we kind of screwed you out of a job. We're sorry about that. But we feel like there's better options out there. And he's not wrong. There's many, many great defensive coordinator options out there this year that there weren't last year when they eventually hired Nick Sorensen in the offseason. He also said he was open to somewhat of a schematic change, or at least a schematic tweak or two. He did say he was comfortable and did like the cover 3 wide 9 system they run, but admitted that defenses may have caught up to what they were doing defensively. So it seems like finally they're open to changing some things defensively. Bobo says here that on top of Robert Saleh and Brandon Staley, Richard Sherman would be a pretty good coach. I'm not sure if he'd actually want to be a coach this year. I believe he was quoted as saying, not yet, there's better options than him out there. But again, it's really hard to argue against a former All-Pro, a likely future Hall of Famer potentially, coaching your defensive backs or your defense. I will say this, though. I don't believe the Niners want a secondary or a cornerback coach, defensive back coach, to be leading the charge offense or defensively. I think they want someone that plays linebacker, that has played linebacker. DeMeco Ryans was one of those guys. Even Nick Sorensen was one. But I think they want this like leader of men guy who will come in here and be this mastermind defensive coordinator, which stay tuned later this week. We will talk about 7 defensive coordinating candidates that I think fit the Niners to a T. I think you'll be very shocked who I have at number 1 and who I don't have at number 1. But I don't dislike the Sherman idea. I just think, if anything, he'd kind of fill in that Al Harris with the Cowboys defensive back role with the San Francisco 49ers if they want to move off of Daniel Bullock's at a certain point in time in the future. Papa J also says, what's up, Sterling? What's up, Papa J? Let's continue here, though, on the reaction to the press conferences today. One more final coaching change happened, or at least is going to happen in the future, or at least not change, promotion is going to happen in regards to Clay Kubiak will finally get the actual title of offensive coordinator. Unfortunately, though, for him, many of you out there who don't want Kyle Shanahan calling plays, that's not going to change. Clay Kubiak is not going to be calling plays in 2025. At least that's not the plan. Now, Clay did call plays in the preseason against the Saints, I think twice earlier this year, and against the Saints and the Titans, I believe. Or maybe it was the Saints and the Raiders. Either way, he also called plays in the season finale against the Cardinals in Week 18 1 week ago. So maybe there are winds of change coming to San Francisco, but at least as of now, it is a promotion and title only. And maybe an opportunity for him, that being Clay Kubiak, to eventually leave elsewhere to become a legitimate play caller in the NFL, or maybe head coach somewhere else in the near future. But what do you think of the coaching changes they made? Put your comments down below and sound off as to, do you like they fired Nick Sorensen? Do you dislike they're going to try to maybe look at Brandon Staley? And how elated are you they fired Brian Schneider? I am very happy with that. We've been clamoring for that for months, if not for years on the show. But let's move on to the player-related topics that were covered today on the press conference. A lot of will they be back, will they won't be back conversations. Look, this is a pivotal offseason for San Francisco. They have to get this offseason right. They have to spend their money wisely. A lot of people believe that paying Brock Purdy just like damns their financial situation. It's not true. They can pay Brock Purdy and they can still pay other guys. They have $60 million carrying over into this offseason. They also can extend George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk. They can even maybe extend Deebo Samuel, although I wouldn't do that, and free up more money. So it's not like paying Brock Purdy just like ruins everything for them, but how they spend their money, it's got to be wise. Pick and choose your points, be smart with the finances, and hopefully it all works out for you next year, because you got to win. You're in the window. You got to win now, especially depending on who you hire as defensive coordinator. And I believe the reason they fired Nick Sorensen was because they knew he was not going to be the answer to many of their questions. The first player that was covered today was Trent Williams. A lot of conversation has happened because of Trent's ankle and him losing his child earlier this year. He didn't play the rest of the season after he got hurt in week 11 against the Seahawks, I believe. Missed the final 7 games, had that scooter on his left ankle a lot of the final few weeks of the NFL season, didn't talk to the media, just felt kind of reserved, didn't spend time around the team very much at the end of the year. So a lot of conversation, speculation began of, okay, is Trent going to retire? It was going to be an interesting talking point because he signed a massive 3-year, $82 million renegotiated contract this past offseason. So he was going to leave a lot of money on the table if he left. But thankfully for San Francisco, their future Hall of Fame left tackle will indeed be back in 2025. And I think of all the years, depending on how you look at it, I actually like the depth they have at left tackle. I think that you have Jalen Moore, you have who actually was really good this year as Williams' backup. Maybe you have Spencer Burford, who was kind of the emergency number 3. And honestly, Charlie Heck wasn't even that bad, if I'm being completely honest with you. But it's good to have Trent back in that conversation. They should bring back Jalen Moore, which Kyle Shanahan kindly points out, who is a free agent this offseason. Bring him back on a 1 to 2 year deal. I think he's not going to be looking for big money elsewhere. I also think it's important to, now that Moore looked competent playing left tackle, knowing Trent also has the ticking time bomb via his ankle waiting to go off. He's going to miss time at a certain point this year, even after having the entire offseason to rest and recuperate. I think it's important to have a viable backup left tackle. I think Jalen Moore should be that, but it also leaves the door open for maybe drafting a replacement in rounds 2 through 4. You never know. Maybe Will Campbell's out there, Kevin Banks in the first round. Maybe they go round 1 tackle. A lot open for San Francisco, but it certainly helps and gives them plenty of options. If they want to go edge rusher, defensive tackle, heck, if they want to go receiver again in that first round, they can do that now, knowing Trent Williams is back in the fray for 2025. We have some comments here in the YouTube chat via Kyle Shanahan saying, in regards to Brandon Staley getting an opportunity for an interview, He says it is just out of courtesy. They could have gave him the job, but they're excited to get a new one. I completely agree with you. That is the truth. Kyle also says here, I think Sorensen, they want back as the ball father and get a real special teams coordinator. I believe your first statement. I'm not sure if they're going to give Sorensen that coordinator job on special teams. I know it's rumored out there. I would prefer brand new coaches, but you never know what they're going to do. Let's also see out here. Alex Conklin says, Sterling, Shanahan's message about Brock has to inspire confidence. We'll get to Brock Purdy at the end of the show, but yes, you are correct, Alex. A lot of confidence and maybe some more ammunition for the fans that want Shanahan fired. Bobo, if you hear me, this one may be for you at the end of the show today. Let's move on, though, to Deebo Samuel. A lot of talk has been happening from myself and many other people on social media in the fan base saying they don't want Deebo Samuel back, or at least are questioning his future with the organization. That was put to rest today by John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. When asked if he expects Deebo Samuel back, he said, he's under contract. They said, so he's back, right? They were like, yep, he's a good player, and he's done a ton for this organization. We're not in the business of letting good players out there. I think that there is an opportunity, and I think the way that was phrased, it wasn't like, yep, he's back on the contract he currently has. I think the door is open for them to renegotiate Deebo's contract or maybe add some void years to it, simply to lower that cap hit next year, because the way Deebo played this past year, outside of the Lions game late and the Dolphins game late this year, he really wasn't the same player. And I think you have to be honest with yourself that even if you get Christian McCaffrey back, if Pearsall becomes this budding superstar as a receiver and Kittle's still awesome, Deebo Samuel didn't show you much to say, yep, that warrants a massive contract. Getting $71 million in the final year of that deal, I think that it's okay to want Deebo back, but I'm really hesitant to say that he's worth the contract he currently has. So I wouldn't be shocked if there's an extension / renegotiation for Deebo Samuel in 2025, but he is going to be back next year. Moving along, we have linebacker Dre Greenlaw. I cannot tell you how many comments I see where, and I get the emotional ties to Dre Greenlaw. I totally get it. Greenlaw is awesome. I have his jersey. He is one of my favorite players on this team, above Deebo, above, I don't know, someone defense. Like, I like Greenlaw more than Fred Warner. I'm that kind of guy, and I love Fred to the end of the earth, but I love Dre Greenlaw. His passion, his aggressiveness, I totally get why fans connect with him. He is, to a certain extent, the lifeblood of this defense, the heartbeat of this defense. But right now, he is scheduled to be an impending free agent this year. Earlier this week, Fred Warner's wife put on social media a video of what seemed to be a going away party for Greenlaw's fiance / wife, whatever she may be. And even Greenlaw's fiance, or whatever she may be, kind of was like, this is our final block party. Now, we don't really know what that means exactly, but it certainly looked like Greenlaw was not going to return next year. But according to Lynch and Shanahan, they are going to do everything they can to bring back Dre Greenlaw in 2025. Lynch also said the desire is from both sides to stay together next year. So it feels like that they're going to get something done, but I also believe it would be wise for San Francisco to actually let Dre Greenlaw test the market, see what's out there, and maybe drive the high price tag he thinks he may have down a little bit to help them save some money. Kawachipto says here, Greenlaw for around $5 to $8 million is fine, but he's an injury risk. Yeah, that is the sticking point for myself. That is why when I hear and see fans talk about, you got to bring Dre back, give him whenever he wants, give him whenever, you have to bring him back so much. I push back a little bit and say, well, it kind of depends on the price they're willing to pay. I'm not willing to pay Dre Greenlaw double-digit figures. I'm willing to pay that in incentives if he plays the whole year, but I'm not willing to commit guaranteed money of double-digit figures to Dre Greenlaw, knowing he already tore one Achilles and the opposite calf is bothering him again. Like, that is scary to me. I get it. I love Dre too. When he's out there, when he's healthy, him and Warner are the best linebackers in football. They would have won a Super Bowl had you played the entire 4 quarters against Kansas City a year and a half ago. I totally get that. But I'm not willing to commit double-digit money to a player I just not sure is going to stay healthy the entire time. Papa J says here, maybe Greenlaw is moving to a different neighborhood, fingers crossed. The Cowachito also adds here that Greenlaw and his wife or fiance bought a house in Texas. So yeah, they're moving, but doesn't close the door on re-signing him. Well, that's interesting news. Good to know. Certainly makes me more optimistic that he'll be back next year. But again, money is everything. But I'm certainly hoping they can figure something out. And hopefully Greenlaw can be healthy all year. Because again, when he's out there, it is just otherworldly what they can do defensively. You saw it. Against the Rams this year. It was like, oh, there's the Niners defense we've been waiting to see this season. Bobo says here, if that's the case for Greenlaw, let Brock test the market. See, I would usually agree with you, but linebackers and quarterbacks are very different, and Brock's still under contract, and Brock is not going to play under the last year of that rookie deal he has. What's like $1.2, $1.5 million base salary. He ain't playing through that. He is certainly going to say, give me my money. Show me the money, Jerry Maguire style. I get the thought process, though, but in this case, quarterback, linebacker, not much to compare, and Brock is not going to pay or play under the current pay he will get next year. So you have to pay Brock. And look, the quarterbacks are the most important position on the field. They got to pay these guys. And again, we'll get to Brock Purdy in 1 second. It really feels like they're going to get this thing done pretty quickly here and lock him up for a long, long time. The last player to talk about today is Javon Hargrave. The long-awaited rumor that he won't be back next year is true. Javon Hargrave is going to be released via a post-June 1st designation. It makes sense. I know he was a Pro Bowler in 2023. He had like 7 sacks and 14 quarterback hits, but didn't really fulfill that DeForest Buckner type role they wanted him to have. And then this year, he plays 3 games, tears his tricep, and you're like, well, crap. A lot of money going to a player that really hasn't lived up to potential. But I will say this, that while San Francisco can only free up about $3-ish million by cutting him, they also said that there is a way, or they're trying to hopefully retain him. Now, they're going to cut him in March or pre-March. That way, he can hit the open market and he can sign anywhere, but they're hoping that that the Niners can be maybe a potential suitor for him when he's on free agency. So there is a way Hargrave comes back, but it feels like he is long gone. That said, I wouldn't mind a 1 to 2 year deal for him on a cheaper contract. Like, treat Hargrave like Dre Greenlaw, right? It's players off injuries, not sure exactly how they're going to be. Give them a 1 to 2 year deal. Let them kind of rebuild their stock and value on your team, on your defense. You get the reward. They then get paid elsewhere or get paid by you in the future. I wouldn't mind that at all, but San Francisco, by releasing Hargrave, or opening the door to having, you got to find another star defensive tackle. Maybe it's DJ Jones. Maybe it is the long-awaited return of DeForest Buckner. I have no idea, but if you cut Hargrave, you only have Malik Collins, you have Kalia Davis, you have Jordan Elliott, I believe, you have Evan Anderson, and then you also have Khalil Davis via the restricted free agency tag they can put on him. So you got 5 guys under contract. None of those guys tickle my fancy. So I'm hoping they can figure something out there with Hargrave, or that first round pick, number 11, eerily similar to what happened in 2020. Think of it this way. They lose the Super Bowl. They trade Buckner, draft Kinlaw. Fast forward, they lose this. They sign Hargrave to be the DeForest Buckner of this defense. They lose the Super Bowl. He then gets hurt. 1 year later, they're going to cut him. Who do they draft next? It's all coincidences for sure, but like this team feels like they are going to want to revitalize, re-energize the trenches on defense. And I'm hoping that, whether it's Hargrave or somebody else that can re-find another star interior defensive tackle. My vote, DJ Jones. My vote, give me that run-stuffing, cannonball type player that left a few years back. Don't bring back Buckner. Bring back DJ Jones. I would love that so much. But let's move on to Bobo's favorite player, and let's talk about Brock Purdy. Let's talk about Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, I don't think the conversation has become contentious just yet, but there certainly is a ton of disagreement amongst the fan base when it comes to how much or if they even should pay Brock Purdy. Now, I am someone that believes I don't want to pay Brock above $60 million, but I can also admit that they're going to pay Brock Purdy. They're going to get this thing done this offseason. And today was another just like, yep, it's going to happen. A matter-of-fact statement, a confirmation, if you will, from John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. When they asked about Brock Purdy, John Lynch said, "What we know about Brock is that he's our guy. We have interest in him being around for a long time." Look, folks, if you don't like Brock Purdy, get off the train now. He is this team's next franchise quarterback. He is this team's quarterback for at least the next probably 3 to 4 years of his contract. They believe in him. They're buying into him. There are certainly drawbacks to having a quarterback like Brock Purdy. The physical limitations are there, although not always prevalent. They certainly are there. The arm strength is lacking at times, but the decision-making when it's up there, it's one of the best in football when he's on his game. The mobility, the evasive and pocket presence that he has is there. It's kind of like a Baker Mayfield-like thing where you're like, he never goes down. He fights. He's a dog in the pocket. He fights for everything he gets, and I love that mentality. The difference is, unlike Baker, he ain't cocky. He's humble, he's quiet, and does his job really, really well, and isn't as streaky as Baker usually is. I like Baker a lot, but Baker just up and down roller coaster ride. Brock is more even keel usually throughout the year. That said, he'll be here. He will be here for a long time. Bobo says here, "I like Brock, and I hope he stays, but not at $55 to $60 million. Win a Super Bowl first." I mean, the last sentence there, win a Super Bowl first. They almost did. They really almost did. And so it's hard for me to say, well, I'm going to penalize you for losing. Like Jared Goff got paid big money. They didn't win anything. And I would like to believe now people would say, well, Jared Goff is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy, when it's like they really have the same kind of career trajectory. And I like Jared Goff. I like Brock Purdy. And I get they're different quarterbacks, but it's like they've accomplished the same thing throughout their entire career. You go to a Super Bowl, you lose, you get paid, and you still are good for a long time and make your offense and your team competitive your entire tenure. With the Rams or the Lions, Goff is that guy. Bobo says here in the YouTube chat as well, "We didn't win because he couldn't convert first downs in close games." Not in the playoffs last year. Yes, the offense got stagnant. They just stopped running the football. I thought a lot of the issues that we saw in the Super Bowl last year with Brock Purdy playing quarterback was more indicative of Kyle Shanahan rather than, or also poor offensive line play Feliciano getting hurt crushed them. But also the offensive line also wasn't great when it came to picking up what Spagnuolo threw at them. That said, I think a lot of what held them back was Kyle Shanahan's offensive play calling and what they do late in games. They pass the football. They let the defense dictate what the offense does, which shouldn't happen at all. But I get it. This year we talked a lot, Bobo, and you were there almost the entire time. Late game interceptions by Brock Purdy were just game killers against the Cardinals, against the Rams, against the Dolphins, against the Lions. 4-ish games there they could have won had Brock not thrown picks this year. So I agree with you. He has to improve on things, and I think he will. Brock has never given me the attitude, or it's never been like, oh, he's not going to want to get better. There always is this mindset of Brock wants to improve his game. You saw in year 2, the arm strength got way better post-surgery. I think we'll see a kind of, I don't want to say refocused Brock Purdy, but I think we will see Brock not stay stagnant in his growth as a quarterback. It's only year 3 for him. Let's not forget these guys can take some time to get better as they grow as quarterbacks. Moving on in the YouTube comments as well. S. Barry 55 says, definitely should pay Brock Purdy, but more of a Baker Mayfield number, not Dak Prescott. Unfortunately, if it were me, I'd be like, yep, give him $30 million per year for 3 years. That way you can really see what he's worth and pay him again later. But that's not how things work. You have to pay what the market says, and the market dictates, it seems like, $50+ million for Brock Purdy. In Papa J's case, he says $55 million minimum in his opinion. Kawachipto says 53 to 55 mil. I can certainly see that happening. I think around 55 would be like a reasonable cap for both teams and both sides, Brock and the Niners. It also doesn't remove the idea, the incentives they're going to put in that contract can increase that, per year value to $65 million, right? You get a Pro Bowl, you get an All-Pro, you win a playoff game here or there. When it's all said and done, your contract could equal a player like Dak Prescott per year, but you have to earn it. And then you're not going to be given it for doing nothing, right? So I think there's avenues and ways San Francisco could make a Brock Purdy massive record-breaking contract work, but not make it sound as harsh on paper and optics-wise when it's all said and done. I also think that per year, or the AAV, isn't really how we should look at contracts. I think there's a way where Brock has a lower per year value of like $50 million, $55 million, but has a way larger guarantee to a point where you're like, oh, he's making it up there. I think that is where we should look at the money. That's where players look at the money. So I don't think the per year value actually matters to Brock. I think it's that how much can you guarantee me when I can sign that contract. Papa J says here that Brock is the best quarterback we've seen since Jeff Garcia. I don't want to wait any longer for somebody better. Brock is certainly this team's best passing quarterback since Jeff Garcia. I think Kaepernick's like 1.5 year, 2 year run was so good. The way he played was so fun. I get nowadays it's more, his name is not the same it used to be for a variety of reasons, but that like 2 to 3 year run with Cap was so fun. Like there was elite level play everywhere. There was certainly some drawbacks too, but watching Cap was really fun. Even Jimmy Garoppolo, who wasn't great, still one of the better quarterbacks of the last, 20 plus years in San Francisco history. I would put him up there above Alex Smith. I think it'd be like Garcia, Purdy, Cap, Garoppolo, Alex Smith, in my opinion, in that top 5 of the last 20 plus years or so. More successful than many of them, but Jimmy just had his limitations, if you will. Moving along here in the YouTube chat. Let's see. The 49ers 2025 says, what's up, Sterling? What's up, 49ers 2025? I'll tell you what, I'm feeling pretty good about this year. The offseason, a long offseason, what they've done thus far already makes me excited. I'm like, okay, you see the problems too. You got to fire Sorensen, got to fire Schneider. Let's make some moves, some heavy hitters, take some risks and some swings. I'm hoping it continues throughout the entirety of the offseason. Let's see what we got here. Bobo says he wants to get paid like he won 3 Super Bowls like Patrick Mahomes. He didn't win. He only lost. Well, I'll tell you what, Bobo, if you got paid by how much you won, a lot of quarterbacks wouldn't have got paid at all because Tom Brady ran the world. He won 7 Super Bowls, if not 8, whatever the number may be, almost near a decade of Super Bowl dominance, right? Peyton Manning only has 1. Aaron Rodgers has 1. Drew Brees has 1. And I get it, but like, it was a Tom Brady's world, and we lived in it, right? It was some of the greatest quarterbacks of all time only won 1 Super Bowl. So I get it. You don't want to pay somebody more than a worse or a better quarterback, right? I don't think Brock is worth as much as Lamar Jackson, as Joe Burrow, as Josh Allen, as Mahomes. But he's also more successful than almost every other quarterback in the NFL in just 2.5 or 3 years of play. Like that matters. And I think for Brock, he doesn't get to decide what he gets paid. The Niners also don't get to decide what he gets paid. The market decides what Brock gets paid. And by the play he's had the last 2.5 years, he'll get paid a pretty hefty chunk of change when it's all said and done. CG Ruthless in the chat. What's going on, man? Hope you're having a great day. Lori Matthews says, Jordan Love and Lawrence got 55. They've done nothing. It may change this year for Jordan Love, but yeah. A lot of the quarterback contracts are not predicated by winning anymore. It's by projection. And if you're Brock Purdy, you're like, well, I've done more than their projections may even come to be true. Give me my money. John Malkovich style. Show this man, pay the man his money. The 49ers 2025 says, the Niners YouTube channel deleted my comment. I mentioned Clint Hurt as the DC. I wasn't trying to have Niners talk about another coach under contract. I wasn't watching the press conference live. I saw it later on NBC Sports, but a lot of names to discuss when it comes to the coordinator talk, and we'll talk about that later this week. I got 7 names for you I think could be good matches. We'll rank every single one of them. Ruthless says here, market value dictates it for sure. That was a slip, right? Hopefully he takes a restructured deal. Thoughts on the DC and who you believe the Niners will hire. I'm not going to push back. I won't reveal who I think they will hire. I'll just give you about 7 names they could hire this offseason. Obviously, number 1 for most people is Robert Saleh. Makes a lot of sense. The other one is Jeff Ulbrich. A lot of ties there to the Jets and what San Francisco likes to do defensively. Matt Eberflus could make some sense, former Bears head coach and defensive coordinator. Brandon Staley's getting an interview. Maybe he makes some sense. Lou Anarumo, Bengals defensive coordinator, got fired this year. Maybe he also makes some sense. Gus Bradley. Kyle Shanahan loves Gus Bradley. Don't be shocked. He was the kind of circus leader for the Legion of Boom in Seattle, so there are ties there with what Shanahan likes to run. And also Dennis Allen, former Saints head coach, could also make some sense. So 7 names for you. Won't tell you my favorite, but I'll reveal that later in the week. Fish and Chips says here, how about this? Sorensen, special teams coordinator, Brandon Staley, defensive coordinator. All good. You talk about fans having a meltdown. They would melt down if Sorensen was on the staff. People are already mad about this alone, but if Sorensen stays on the staff, gets the coordinator job for the special teams, and then Staley gets promoted to defensive coordinator, which I wouldn't be shocked if it happens. People would have an absolute meltdown on Twitter, on Instagram. You'd have fans crying and screaming, "You fire Shanahan, get him out of here!" And like we're all like, "Whoa, let's see how this thing plays out." But be pretty funny. It'd be pretty funny, and I'm sure certain YouTubers and commentators make a lot of money on the chaos that would cause. Great One 765 says Cap won games. He did win games. All respect to Cap. His performance against the Packers in the playoffs was incredible. That comeback against the Falcons in the playoffs was incredible. You can think about Cap how you want to, but man, oh man, oh man. Like his play on the field was awesome in that like couple of year stretch he had with San Francisco. It was incredible in his prime. And yes, you're right. Great one. Peyton got two. One with the Colts, beat the Bears, and then beat and one with the Broncos. We beat the Panthers. I was a freshman in college when they beat the Panthers. That is the old Cam Newton didn't dive on the ball game. So you're right. That's my fault. Let's see here. Fish and Chips asks, did you hear the press conference? Kyle guaranteed himself another 2 or 3 years. Yes, he did. That's a great transition. What a segue. Thank you so much. Let's move all the way down. It's a wild comment to say here. Going back to my dictate flub, almost saying dictaste. What a you got me. Pretty good. That said, I do want to hit on what Fish and Chips just mentioned back here, that Kyle Shanahan guaranteeing himself an extra 2 or 3 years. And I think, and it's pretty obvious the reason why that'll be the case. And I'll just put the quote out there. A lot of this is connected to Brock Purdy. Kyle Shanahan, and I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now, maybe a month or two now. When they sign Brock Purdy to that brand new contract, Kyle Shanahan is tying himself to Purdy. He is tying himself to the future of Brock Purdy. If Purdy fails, so does Kyle. If Purdy fails, Kyle is gone. The hot seat gets turned up in a few years. If it's just terrible, it's on fire. You are now walking into the risk and reward. There are 2 doors in front of you. It's Brock is great. Everything is hunky-dory. You're feeling good. And 2 thumbs up. This thing worked. The other door is it's a massive failure. Brock does not come to be the franchise quarterback. And you have to fire Kyle Shanahan and maybe even John Lynch when it's all said and done. So I think that we are entering the, this kind of 2-ended spectrum of nothing in between matters. Only Super Bowl wins and complete busts of seasons. Because now every year and beyond has to be Super Bowl or bust for this team. And the way Kyle Shanahan spoke today about Brock Purdy tells you everything you need to know about how he feels about the quarterback and what the future could look like if it doesn't work out. And I quote Kyle Shanahan on Brock Purdy's future contract negotiations and eventual signing of a new contract. I plan on being with Brock here the whole time I'm here. Brock's been a stud. He's a guy I've got a lot of confidence in just as a human, but it starts with what he's done on the field the last 2.5 years. We are capable of winning the Super Bowl with him. He just almost did, and I know he's capable of getting the Niners a Super Bowl in the future. Everything I just read, the first sentence alone, I plan on Brock being here with me the whole time. I plan on being with Brock here the whole time I'm here. He is tying himself and staking his claim to this is my quarterback. This is who I am ride or die with until it's over. He is saying if Brock Purdy fails, then my tenure as a Niners head coach fails. If Brock Purdy does not win a Super Bowl, Shanahan is saying, I believe he can, but if he doesn't, I will go away with him. And that, my friends, is where we're at. Bobo, you're there. I see in the YouTube comments here, this is exactly what you want. It's a head coach tying himself to a quarterback he believes in so much, essentially laying down the gauntlet for himself, putting the pressure on himself publicly and his quarterback of, look, Brock, we have to win a Super Bowl. You can win a Super Bowl. If you fail, I fail. If I fail, you fail. They are tying themselves together. Brock said a couple of days ago he wants to be in San Francisco for the long haul. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. It's a big vote of confidence. Like Lori Matthews says here, you are correct. But the great 1765 pushes back and says, that's telling me, Kyle, don't give a damn. Get ready for purgatory. 1, that's pretty funny. 2, I don't think you'll have to be there very long if that's the case. If San Francisco finds themselves middling out, if they find themselves as perennial playoff contenders, but never getting the job done, kind of like Andy Reid did towards the end of his Eagles tenure, they are going to eventually have to move off of both. That's the case. The thing is, though, purgatory, according to the great 1765, doesn't have to be 10 years. It can be 3 years. It can be one contract for Brock Purdy. And I tell you what, usually, you know what your quarterback will give you in the first 2 or 3 years of that deal. So I think next year is a big test for Brock and Kyle Shanahan. It's the first year of a new deal. Got to figure it out and win immediately. But let's say next year they go back to the playoffs, don't win it all, but it's a really good year, and it's very kind of like the 2021, 2022 season. Something crazy happens. You're like, oh, God, it wasn't the quarterback's fault. It wasn't Kyle's fault, okay? They buy themselves at least 2 to 3 more years to win in San Francisco. They do. But because of that, the ramp up period begins. Bobo, you can start your burner. You can start your burner. Fish and Chips has an opposite perspective here in the YouTube chat. If so, Sterling, then Kyle is landing the blame on somebody else. It's politics. He also says he's setting the scene for his leaving. Purdy didn't perform. He got me fired. I don't think I've ever seen Kyle Shanahan speak this highly and this concretely about a quarterback, whether Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance, Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins. He's never talked about a quarterback like this. Maybe to a certain degree it's politics, but I don't think, like with Jimmy G, certainly politics. They did not get along. Personalities didn't mesh. Like all that's true. All that is true. Trey Lance was just kind of a weird tenure for Trey. Didn't make a lot of sense, but with Brock, you can just tell. Shanahan apparently knew he was better than Jimmy and Trey in training camp, in practice. Interesting. And now you see the emotions he's had playing with Brock, them hugging on the sidelines when they beat the Lions. He didn't do that with Jimmy. He didn't do it with Matt Ryan. There was an emotional connection. One, probably because Purdy saved his job initially. So the he got me fired conversation should be he allowed me to keep my job and not get fired sooner. Really is what it should have been. But I think that this to me is like the intertwining. If this was the Avatar movies, this is Brock and Kyle Shanahan touching their little ponytails. And you're like, ew, this is weird. I don't want to watch this, but this is what it's like. They are tying and tethering themselves together for next year. We have some comments here in the YouTube chat saying, Lori Matthews, they'll protect themselves in the contract. People need to relax a bit. You have to have a stable quarterback to win. Let me ask you guys this. I've been pondering this for a long time. Would you rather have a quarterback that is elite for 2 or 3 years, like elite, and you have a 3-year window to win a Super Bowl, and you can win or lose, but he's elite for 3 years, gives you everything you want from a quarterback for 2 to 3 years? Or would you rather have a quarterback that is consistent for 8 years and you are perennial contenders? You may go to Super Bowl, you may not go at all, but you're always going to find yourself in the dance when it comes to January. Maybe if you get lucky, you go again in the Super Bowl, maybe you win, maybe you don't. Would you rather have a 3-year window to maximize an elite quarterback play, or an 8-year window of like, we are going to be in this thing every single year? What would you pick? I think I picked the latter. I think I want that consistent quarterback for almost a decade that can give me everything I have or almost need, because then I can build my team around that, compared to like, oh, I have one guy save me, which, don't get me wrong, Josh Allen's like this. Josh Allen, like, they tore the Bills apart in the offseason, and he is carrying them. Like, who wouldn't love Josh Allen? But in that same conversation, they have an amazing run defense, a pretty good defense, and a pretty good offensive line. Whereas for Brock, like, would you rather have Josh Allen and nobody else? Or would you rather have Brock and superstars? Maybe that's kind of a bad conversation to have, but it more so comes back to that 3-year elite window, or an 8-year of like, we have a decade of almost dominance to get one Super Bowl. What would you rather have? Let's get to the YouTube comments again. Great One says here, or excuse me, Kawachipto says that next year they probably make the NFC Championship game again and lose. They will have a lot of young talent and plan to go to a Super Bowl in year 2 or 3. I can certainly see that too. I had San Francisco, I think, going to the divisional round this year and losing to the Packers. I think that was my preseason prediction. I didn't think this year would be great, but didn't think it'd be this bad. So I can certainly see that next year as well. Bobo says here, for the record, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope they win us a championship. I'll gladly answer that call of shame and take everything I back. See, Bobo, that's why I love you. Me and you are alike in a certain way. It's that if we're wrong, we'll eat that crow. You eat that big bowl of crow and say, look, I'll be happy to be wrong. And I'm cool with that. Good on you. See what we have here in the YouTube chat as well. Great One 765 says, Niners don't have to invest so much in an average quarterback. Trade Purdy for picks, sign Aaron Rodgers if available, or Justin Fields. You can even trade for Malik Willis. It's a lot to unpack there. That's a lot to unpack there. Great One 765. Sign Aaron Rodgers. So, just for clarification, you'd rather have a 41, 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers who may play one more year than a 25, 24-year-old Brock Purdy for 4 years? You'd rather have Justin Fields, who I wouldn't mind as a backup, rather have Fields be this team's starting quarterback, who has never proven to be a capable thrower of the football consistently. Even this year, he went 4-2 as a quarterback for the Steelers. It was all ground game, brother, which is great to a certain degree, but you gotta be able to throw on time and on target. Hence why, being a backup in this system, he may be the next quarterback on that Darnold, Baker Mayfield kind of route of quarterbacks of, wow, they went to a Shanahan-like system and remade themselves. Malik Willis, I think he's under contract for the Packers, and he saved their butt a few times this year early in the season. I don't see him leaving or being traded, but I do like his progress thus far in his early part of his career. Leon Sandcastle gets me every time. Would y'all consider Andy Dalton as a backup next year? Yeah, I would love that. I think Andy Dalton has had the eye of Kyle Shanahan for a pretty long time. Back when they had Trey, I believe the idea was they wanted to trade Jimmy, sign Dalton, then let Trey kind of pick up as the season progressed on. I would love that. I don't know if Dalton wants to play again. I'm sure he does, but I would really want to see that. I wouldn't mind that. He'd be like a $10 to $8 million quarterback next year. Maybe it's too much money to invest in the quarterback room with Purdy also in there, but I wouldn't mind that at all. Dalton will be great. Fields will be great. Even getting Dobbs back is fine with me. You don't have to have an elite backup quarterback, but a viable one. All three of those guys make a lot of sense for me. Let's see. Great 1765 says, here it's time to win. I agree. Got to win. You have to win. Lori Matthews says, here, Josh Allen doesn't have a ring either, or Lamar. Papa J says, preach Sterling. I'd keep Brock also. Great 1765 says, opposing teams have no fear in Purdy. They want us to sign Purdy. I don't think that's true. Now, I would agree with you that other teams don't fear Brock as much as, say, Jordan Love or Josh Allen or Mahomes, Burrow, the elite level guys, although Love isn't there yet. He's growing on me, but isn't there just yet. I think Brock is a playmaker more than, say, like you said earlier, Aaron Rodgers, Baker Mayfield. Even to a certain degree, in a different way, I think Brock is a better playmaker than Jared Goff. Now, Goff, his arm is awesome. It's incredible. In the pocket, it's Goff's world. Like, I will lean that way for sure. But I think Brock can do a lot more with his legs. He can evade pressure. I also am leaning towards Ben Johnson just being a better passing game play caller. I think it's okay to admit that. Not that Brock gets held back by Kyle, but Kyle is not amongst the top 2 or 3 passing game play callers. Andy Reid, Ben Johnson, Kevin O'Connell, maybe Matt LaFleur, maybe. There's a lot to believe, Sean McVay, a lot to believe that maybe Kyle is the 6th best passing game coordinator, and there's a gap in between the rest of those guys and him. I think that's a conversation we should have. That said, I do think some teams fear Brock Purdy. I mean, Steve Spagnuolo was hyping up Purdy before and even called him personally after the Super Bowl. That to me is a big indication that the best defensive coordinator in football fears Brock Purdy. Bobo says here, Josh Allen can play in the snow and bad weather. You're right. You are completely right. Brock has limitations. He certainly does. But I guarantee you this. And this is the big thing, if you put every starting quarterback, there's a salary cap, nobody's signed. They're on their respective teams, but then you start ranking where all these quarterbacks go. I guarantee you, Allen, Burrow, Jackson, Mahomes, all those guys would get top of the line money. It's just about when you sign, where you sign, and what the market is at that current place in time. The market really doesn't tell you who the best quarterback is. The market just tells you what the value of quarterbacks are at that time. It's like supply and demand, right? Eggs are astronomical. Well, why? It's the place and time we're currently in. Brock Purdy's contract will be astronomical because of the place and time we're currently in. And also, he's pretty good. He's a pretty good quarterback. Keeping on here. Let's see what we have in the YouTube chat still. Papa J says, we definitely need Aaron Rodgers on the Niners so he can fire Kyle like he did Saleh. Jesus. Great 1765 says, if we don't win next year, it's officially over. I don't think so. There's got to be context involved. If Brock comes out next year and looks exactly like he looked this year, where there's inconsistencies, he's good for 6 weeks, then bad for the next 10. I think that's oh crap, what did we do? But if Brock is really good and the kicker still stinks and guys get hurt again and other contextual things happen, then no. but they can also draft a rock star 2025 draft class full of studs everywhere and have like some star players get old and phase out. Like context does matter. I don't think a 2-year down period, whether it's this year or the next year being like a non Super Bowl winning season, doesn't mean the window's over with. It just means that you question how much longer the window stays open, but they have to draft well. You got to hit on those picks. That matters so much. So much. Great comment here. Jets is ass forever. Somebody please clip that. Jets is ass forever. I love that. Keys says here, what's up, Sterling? If we can't get Soller or Ulbrich, how you feel about Dennis Allen? I'll just say this. You are barking up the right tree. The very, very, very right tree in regards to Dennis Allen. Man, oh man, oh man. I like myself some Dennis Allen. A lot. No team fears Brock Purdy. Again, I push back on that. And no, I don't think Spagnuolo was playing mind games or being generous. It makes sense before the game to do so, but after the game, no. You don't call a quarterback after the game and give him his kudos. I'm like, here, you were great for no reason. Like that, like before the game, fine. He called him personally after the game. That means something to me. Let's see what we have here on the YouTube chat before we end the show. Who do I have in the CFB this week? I don't even know who's playing, man. I have not watched much college football this year. Usually I save a lot of my viewing for after the season's over with in regards to draft preparation. But let me see here. Who's playing in the CFB this week? Maybe you can help me out in the comments if I'm too slow. Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Texas. I'm a Boomer Sooner guy, so I can't pick Texas. So I'll go Ohio State. Texas, I think, escaped against Arizona State. So I'll pick Ohio State. I'll also pick Penn State. They got some dogs out there, man. Like, there are so many defensive players on that Penn State team where I'm like, I want him. I want that guy. I want that. At number 11, I don't even know his name yet. I have not watched much football in college this year, but number 11 on Penn State, my goodness. Give me that guy. Give me that guy right now. I don't even know his name. Not at all. But man. Jalen Hurts lit up the Chiefs defense and Spags didn't call Hurts. Well, I'm not Spagnuolo. I don't think that 1 + 1 = 2 in this case. I get what you're saying, but I also don't think that matters that much. Like, if it was before the game, then okay, fine. But again, the after the game call matters to me. He says, I'm giving Purdy credit for being mediocre in the Super Bowl. Was Purdy great in the Super Bowl? No. I don't think I'm giving him credit for being mediocre in the Super Bowl. I think I'm giving credit for him being phenomenal for 2 years prior to this season. Like, Brock was excellent the last 2 seasons, or just the last year and a half or so, whatever that number actually is. Excellent. I'm not giving him overwhelming, like, oh my God, Brock was amazing against the Chiefs. And like, no, he wasn't. He was fine. He was good enough to win. But I think there were other factors. He says Purdy fell off after the Ravens game. He was good against the Commanders, didn't play against the Rams. And then against the Packers, yeah, he wasn't great in that game, but he wasn't bad. The Lions game, first half wasn't great. You go back and watch that second half of that Lions game, Brock Purdy was putting on a clinic. He playmaker. Like, we forget. We see box scores and go, 4 interceptions on Christmas and mediocre against the Commanders. Go back and watch that second half game against the Lions in the NFC Championship game. Purdy was incredible in that one. Let's see. I don't see any more comments in the YouTube chat. So, in the comments below, tell me what you think. Are the Niners making the right move when it comes to bringing back Deebo Samuel, trying to re-sign Dre Greenlaw? How do you feel about firing Brian Schneider and moving or demoting Nick Sorensen, yet keeping Nick Sorensen on the coaching staff? Stay tuned later this week. We're deep diving into 7 different defensive coordinator candidates. You're not going to want to miss that. And how does Kyle Shanahan's comments make you feel when it comes to Brock Purdy? I'll read it for you again. I plan on being here with Brock here the whole time I'm here. Brock's been a stud. He's a guy I've got a lot of confidence in just as a human, but it starts with what he's done on the field these last 2.5 years. We're capable of winning a Super Bowl with him. He just almost did, and I know he's capable of getting the Niners a Super Bowl in the future. How does that make you feel? Make you feel a certain way? Makes me feel like the tethering has begun with Shanahan and Brock Purdy, which only means you got to win, and if you don't, you got to get out of here. This is the crossroads 2025. The motto is, to quote Bone Thugs and Harmony, I'll meet you at the crossroads, brother. We're at the crossroads right now for the San Francisco 49ers. Tell me what you think down below in the YouTube comments. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much to every single person in the YouTube chat. Leon Sandcastle, Fish and Chips, Papa J, Calachipto, Great 1765. Even if we disagree, I appreciate you being here and spending your time with me on a Wednesday night. Lori Matthews, Keys, so many more. Bobo is in here a lot of the time. Not sure if they're still here, but so many people. Alex Conklin, so many of you out there. Thank you so much for watching, listening. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night. Tommy Huxley's also here. Again, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Leave that review on the audio podcasting platforms. Look, Great 1765 just subscribed. You might as well too. Thank you so much for watching, listening. If you want to, you can follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X, or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And I know the season's technically over, but if you want to go to a concert, want to go maybe to a Warriors game, an NBA game, MLB's just around the corner, use our promo code right here on the screen, 49ers Access, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com. You can save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And as we await the news as to who the Niners will hire as their next defensive coordinator, go to sportsspyder.com. It's your one-stop shop for your favorite team's latest news, podcasts, and articles. Click that link down below in the description or go to sportsspyder.com. And look, it'll be a long off season, folks. I want you to come back here all day, all off season long. We're talking about everything: rumors, trades, releases, defensive coordinators. What do we got? And yes, Fish and Chips, maybe I should take Nick Sorensen's job in 2025. I don't mind getting in somebody's face if they're doing something wrong. Hey, Nick Bosa, I need more than 9.5 sacks next year, brother. Leonard Floyd, can you give me something more than 2 great games this year? I need something more from you in 2025. Maybe it's me on the docket for the defense coordinator job next season. That said, my name is Sterling Bennett. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and until next time, as always, stay faithful.